You've done it again. You just met someone. They smiled, said their name clearly, and 5 seconds later, it's gone. And the worst part isn't even forgetting. It's that awkward pause where you're still nodding, still pretending, hoping their name magically comes back before you have to use it. So you avoid saying it. You overuse hey and bro and you. And inside there's that quiet panic building. You start replaying the moment in your head. You remember their face, their tone, even what they were wearing, but not the one detail you actually need. But here's the strange part. People who forget names easily aren't careless. They're not rude either. If you're someone who blanks on names, even when you genuinely care, this is going to feel uncomfortably accurate. Because today, you're going to understand what your brain is actually doing in those moments, and why this habit says a lot more about how you process the world than you think. Here's what most people get wrong about forgetting names. They assume it's about memory. It's not. It's about attention, pressure, and how your brain prioritizes information in real time. Your brain is constantly deciding what matters most in a given moment, and during social interactions, that priority often shifts away from simple details like names. Once you understand that, a lot of those awkward moments start to make sense. And more importantly, you stop judging yourself for something that was never really about forgetfulness in the first place. But here's what's interesting. Names aren't just information. They carry social weight. The moment someone tells you their name, your brain doesn't just store it. It also starts managing impressions. Are you smiling enough? Did your handshake feel confident? What should you say next? You're tracking tone, timing, and your own behavior at the same time. That's a lot for one moment. Now your attention splits. And when attention splits, memory weakens. There's a concept called the next-in-line effect, studied at the University of Chicago in 2010. Researchers found that when people are waiting for their turn to speak, their ability to remember what was just said drops significantly, because their focus shifts inward. And that's exactly what happens here. You're not ignoring their name. You're busy preparing your response. So, the name never gets a fair chance to settle. And later, it feels like you forgot. But the truth is, your brain never fully captured it to begin with. And that small difference explains a lot. Here's where it gets more precise. Your brain treats names differently from other information. Objects, faces, emotions, they all connect to meaning. But names, they're abstract labels. There's no built-in story. Neuroscientist Dr. Lisa Genova has explained that proper names rely heavily on the brain's left temporal lobe, which handles verbal memory. But unlike visual or emotional memory, this system is fragile under pressure. So if your brain is slightly overloaded, even for a few seconds, names are the first thing to drop. And this happens faster than you realize. One distracted moment is enough. It's not because you don't care. It's because your brain is prioritizing survival-level processing over random verbal detail. And in social situations, survival often means reading tone, body language, and subtle cues, not storing syllables. So your brain chooses what feels more important in that second, and names lose that competition. Now here's where it gets more personal. For many people, this pattern didn't start recently. It goes back to how you learned to navigate conversations growing up. If you were someone who felt the need to perform socially, to be polite, to respond correctly, to avoid awkwardness, your brain learned to focus on reactions, not details. You learned to read the room, and that skill stayed. So, even now, when someone introduces themselves, your mind is scanning for tone, mood, intention. Are they friendly, formal, judgmental? You might not even notice you're doing this. It feels automatic. That scanning takes priority. Because at some level, your brain believes that reading people matters more than remembering labels. And honestly, it's not wrong, but it comes at a cost. The name slips through. You walk away remembering how they felt, not what they were called. Here's what the research actually found. In 2014, a study from the University of Aberdeen explored why people struggle with names more than other types of memory. Participants were significantly worse at recalling names compared to occupations or facts about a person, even when exposure time was the same. Why? Because names lack what psychologists call semantic anchors. They don't connect easily to meaning. If someone says, "I'm a doctor," your brain links that to images, experiences, and emotions. But if they say, "I'm Alex," there's nothing to attach it to. So unless your attention is fully present in that exact moment, the name fades almost instantly. And here's the part most people overlook. Even a slight distraction is enough to break that process, which means your experience isn't unusual. It's actually very common. Millions of people deal with this regularly. They just don't talk about it. Now, compare that to people who rarely forget names. They're not necessarily smarter, they're just processing differently. While most people focus on conversation flow, they deliberately pause and lock in the name. They repeat it, visualize it, and give it meaning. They slow the moment down. Meanwhile, you stay in motion. You prioritize connection over recall. You listen, respond, and adapt. And that makes you socially fluid. But it also means certain details get sacrificed. So while others remember names better, you often pick up on things they completely miss. Tone shifts, subtle discomfort, unspoken signals. You notice when someone hesitates before answering. You feel when energy changes in a conversation. And that's not a weakness. That's a trade-off. You gain awareness in one area while losing precision in another. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. For some people, forgetting names isn't just cognitive, it's emotional. When you meet someone new, there's a small level of pressure. You want to come across well. You don't want to seem awkward. That pressure creates mild anxiety, and anxiety interferes with memory encoding. Psychologist Daniel Schachter from Harvard has written about how stress disrupts working memory, even at low levels. So in that moment, your brain is slightly tense, not enough to notice, but enough to interfere. And again, names are the weakest link. They disappear first. So it's not just forgetfulness. It's your brain trying to manage emotion and performance at the same time. You're balancing how you appear and how you feel, all within seconds. And something has to give. When you step back and look at all of this, a pattern starts to form. You're not someone who just forgets names. You're someone whose brain prioritizes social awareness, emotional reading, and real-time processing over static details. You focus on people, not labels. And yes, sometimes that leads to awkward moments. Moments where you wish you could rewind and listen again. But that doesn't make you careless. It means your attention is wired differently. You notice what others overlook. You read what others miss. You pick up on feelings that never get spoken out loud. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not broken. You're not inattentive. You're just processing the world in a way that values connection over recall. Pause. And once you stop turning that into a flaw, you start seeing it for what it really is. A different kind of awareness. Something most people never even realize they're missing. If this resonated with you, the next video is going to feel even more personal. It explores why you replay conversations in your head long after they end, and what that says about your mind. You'll probably recognize yourself in that too. If this is the kind of psychology you want more of, I genuinely appreciate you subscribing. It helps more than you think. And if you want to understand yourself on a deeper level, there's more waiting for you.